Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
When you come home from work, or even if you go to work, you should feel good about it. You walk into your workspace, your living space, and it just should resonate with positivity. If it's not, maybe it's time for a redesign. Maybe you've thought about, hey, wouldn't that be cool to have somebody help me out with that? And I'm not talking about your friend Jennifer. I'm talking about a professional that does this kind of work, an interior designer who does like amazing work. I've got one, and we're going to take you through the whole process. Rebecca Marks joins us here today. Welcome back. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you, Steve, for having me.
Fantastic. It was great having you. Last time we got together, we looked at different rooms and different things that we can do. I potentially want to get back into that and share ideas. But even before we go there, what are some of the misconceptions that people have when it comes to hiring an interior designer? I'm sure there's a lot of things that block people. Yeah, it would be great to have somebody help me out, but here's why I'm not doing it. What do you hear from people, or what do you think?
Right now, a lot of times that before they even make a call to see, what we do or how we work, they don't even make that call to see, like, hey, let me try it out. So yeah, so that's a great point. So I think the biggest thing that people does not um think that they can do with it when it comes to an interior designer is that we're too expensive.
Mhm.
Uh, like I can't afford it. There is no way that, like, because they see what's going on probably and on TV. You see all these beautiful, these interior designers that work in this beautiful $1 million homes, and you think that's all we do.
Yep.
But the truth is that we don't. We're not too expensive. It depends on the scope of the job. I've done work where they just want me to come in, look at the space, measure it out, and do a furniture layout for them, and that's all they need. So it really depends on what kind of job do you want me to do you have all the furniture you love, but you need artwork, and so you want to know like how big should the artwork be or what colors and things like that. So I help you, guide you, and then you go and purchase your own artwork possibly, so it really depends on what you need. But at the end of the day, we're not too expensive. It's all about how much service you need. The other thing that people don't think about is maybe you're purchasing a new home or you're building a new home and you have the plans and you get really excited, right? Because you don't want to bring any of your old furniture into your house. So you go to the store and you start buying stuff, and then it comes a delivery day. And you realize the couch is too small, the entertainment center does not fit on the wall right.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh my God, what did I do? Now you're stuck with all the stuff. So that's one of the things that I've done too is work with homeowners when they're building new homes and they want to bring in furniture. They don't want to wait, especially since COVID, which is getting a lot better. Especially since COVID, the wait time sometimes between the moment you order furniture to the moment that it's actually delivered is so long. They try to get ahead of the curve while they're still building, and we know the structure of the place, the house. We can go shopping because I, a professional, can measure out the space properly, use the plans that you already have. And then we can look at what the layout will look like and then give you a 3D even like view of what your house is going to look like with the stack furniture and da da, right? So you avoid that costly mistake. The other one is hiring people. What if you're, maybe you want to do a building closet and you hire the wrong person for the job and you end up paying for the wrong person plus the fixings plus the maybe the building is falling apart. And what interior designers do that we're really good at is we have in our back pocket great professionals to help us get the job
Hmm.
done. I have painters, I have contractors, I have woodworkers. If
Wow.
I want custom made furniture, I know exactly who to call. So like for those tricky corners in the tricky bedroom that maybe it's like shaped like a triangle, which probably in New York City you see more of those out here in North Carolina, but and so you want to maximize that space. And I think that's where hiring an interior designer is not so costly anymore when you think about those details that have to come to get the job done.
You bringing back so many thoughts in my mind. I can't remember how many houses I've been through, but I had one built. It was like 25 years ago. It didn't even occur to me to have a designer come in. Like, duh, I should have done that back then because I don't think I effectively used the space. It's never,
Mhm.
it was good, but I wasn't like over the top in terms of the way it looked. It was a Victorian, had a nice little wraparound porch, had it built again. Um, the living room furniture and the decor just was too old school for me. But it was like one of those just go and buy stuff and then throw it in there and see what it
Mhm.
looks like.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when you have that kind of investment to build your dream home, shouldn't it look also like it is your dream home to have the
Yeah.
perfect wallpaper, the fixings, the lighting, everything should flow and be interesting and be as important as it was to put this team together to build you what could be your forever home,
Hmm.
possibly.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I thought I've been in 4 different homes. I'm currently renting in between houses. Just not the right market to buy. But I'll tell you this too. In the last place I sold, which was last year, I remember actually, no, I take that back. It even goes back to the house before that. I wanted a gold yellowy color in one of the rooms. And in that house, like this is one back, I went through all different types of paint. I tried different textures, all of that. It was a fail. It just looked too yellowy, blah, blah, blah. When I get into the last house, this one, and the color, I really wanted it. I saw it somewhere. I couldn't find it anywhere. I went through, it would have been cheaper to go to you for
Mm.
recommendations than of all the cans of paint and all the time I wasted.
Oh yeah.
Finally found it. It was called Chesterfield Buff. Got it up, put it on the wall. It was in the bedroom. I also put it in a home office because I liked it so much. But we don't think of those things. We
I
try and do it ourselves.
actually It's so funny you say that about the color because I had a client we redid and should be on my website, but it was called the Big House because it was a full home remodel and the exterior of the house used to be blue with dark blue shutters. And I guess they drive a lot to Raleigh, which is, a little ways from us, but they went through this little back road every time. I know exactly which back road and which town. And she said, when you're driving, there's this beautiful greenhouse and that's the color I want. So she tried to explain to me what the color was. I tried looking for it and like sending her samples. And like you, right? Like that's not it. And that's not it. So finally I was like, you know what? I'm getting on the car. So I drove for my client. I drove all the way there. I found the
Wow.
house,
Wow.
knocked on the door, and I was like, super random question. Here's my business card. I need to know what color your house is because my client loves it and I need to have it. So they were able to actually find me an old can of paint. I was able to take a picture of it, bring it back, give it to my painters, and now their house is the exact green that she wanted.
You are
Without
a
the
trooper.
hustle.
Oh my gosh. And I was going to ask you a little while ago, is it worth hiring somebody like you? I would say, and I wanted us to talk about it. I already answered the question as I'm thinking back to all those times where I try to do stuff, figure things out. Even the example you just gave, what a shining example of this is what you do. You go the distance because that color meant so much. And by the way, yes, you can take a picture of it. It's always going to vary on screen. It's going to be
Mhm.
different. And there have been times where I've seen a color, got a little, scrape a little bit off the wall. You go to the paint store, home store, whatever it is, and they take a shot of it in their camera with the computer. I've had decent results. It's never exact, but it's close. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've dealt with that too,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah. And I never trust like friends and because I do also do remote design, especially when it comes to like that, right? When it's something so simple like color selection, I call it simple to me. To the population in general. I mean, when we were going through the big grays are in, there's so many times that I walk in a house and I'm like, oh, that's not the right gray because there is like whites.
Yep.
You want to paint your house white. There's a million shades of whites with undertones, and is it cool? Is it warm? Like, what is it what kind of lighting you have in that space and the light that you use. So it changes. So even something as simple as paint can be so like, oh my God. And so that's one of my favorite and simplest remote services that I offer is to be able to help people with color selection for their
Mm.
space. And something as simple as a little paint in a room can bring out so much in that space without having to swap out furniture and getting into like big remodeling budgets.
Oh, yeah. It can make, done right, it can make a big difference. Just the colors in your home or office. I mean, I've got
Right?
orange
I
on my
love
wall.
that though.
And
You're
again,
bringing out the Spanish in me with that, like
oh,
reddish orange.
oh, well, yeah, I have a marketing company and that's the colors of the logo, at least part of it. But I love, okay, here we go. I've been in this office for 5 years. And to find the right shade of orange, here we go again. I went through so many different colors until I found that one because I didn't want like a bright pukey orange. I wanted something that was rich but had that orange look to it. That's called koi. That's what it's called. And then complementing it, and you can't really see in the background, but it's a gray, a certain shade of gray, and I like the way they look together. I did it myself, but it took time where I could just throw it to you.
Yeah,
Give me some combos. What can I do? What would really work? Is it the exact shade of my logo? No, I really can't find the exact orange. This was the closest.
I
Yes, and that's the difference. And also when you take a look at a color on a wall, there's so many variables. You have the lighting. It's always going to look different depending on the lighting. You have the sheen. So eggshell. I don't even know what to pick. There's so many different ones. I don't know what to pick.
and it's true, right? You can go and even if you go to like a brand like a website looking at colors, and they'll show you, most of them will show you now the different lighting and what the same color looks like. And I mean, from the nighttime to the daytime, afternoon time, they look like three different shades of color. So
Oh,
that is super important when selecting. But that's the kind of knowledge that you pay for when you hire an interior designer, and the things that you avoid as a client, of just not having to live with the headache, picking tiles, and it's like, well, I'm redoing my bathroom and I want white tile, and then you go to the store and you're like, show me your white tiles, and it's like an aisle. And that's just what they have in stores, not even what they have available online. And you're like, oh my God. So that's usually when they give me a call and they're like, hey, Rebecca, I'm trying to redo my bathroom. I got a guy that can do it for me, but oh my God, the selection of the fixtures and the tile is exhausting. Can you help me? And then we go through a series of questions and things that I do when we start working together, so I can figure out your likes and your style. And then I narrow it down to three tiles. And I'm like, here are your three. And usually all three are like, ooh, I love them, right? Because I've already talked to you. We've become friends. I know what you like and what you don't like, which is the other piece, right, of the misconception about hiring an interior designer, is that we are always pushing our style. It's always about, like you walk in
mhm.
and it doesn't feel like your home. It feels like mine because I did exactly what I would like, which is not true either. We work very hard to keep it neutral and listen to what you want and you need, what you dislike, and make sure that we gear our decisions towards those things that you're going to love.
And I have to believe too that you can do it cost effectively. Let's say you're looking at that white tile. I was faced with this once before where I wanted to do large tiles, and I think it was to give the room a bigger look. It was a pretty big room. It was an extension on a house, the second to last one. Um, but it was the tile was expensive. The tile guy was kind of a high-end guy. Somebody recommended him. So he's like, you got to go for the Italian tile. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
do I really need to? I would throw that to you.
Right. No, I would say you don't have to go with the expensive Italian style tile. Um, because, and that's the other piece, right? You meet with the designer, and one of the questions that I'm going to ask you is, what is your budget? And you're always going to say, well, I don't have a budget. And there are ways for me to figure out what your budget is. At the end of the day, I'll find out what your budget is. Trust me, I'll figure it out. The numbers are very important because let's say we're redoing a bathroom and it's $10,000 to $15,000 budget. Do you want to spend the half of it in a very expensive tile? Although we prefer maybe the lighting and a beautiful tub, and I'm just throwing out numbers and throwing out things, but what are you going to focus more when you walk in? Like, oh, how beautiful this white tile that happens to be Italian, but we're not going to be able to tell when we walk in it. Or the club bath, sitting at the end with this beautiful fixture and chandelier on top. So that's the other thing about hiring an interior designer. We help you figure out where you should spend the most and where it's okay to kind of go on the lighter side of the budget.
So you've traveled quite a bit. You went to Belgium. You
Mhm.
learned European culture. I have to also believe that you had inspiration from that culture in terms of design. Just, you put it in your tool belt. If somebody calls upon that, says, "Hey, I really like the certain look," you're aware of it.
So I travel, but every other year I travel to Europe.
Oh,
And my goal
okay.
is, my dad lives in Poland. He's like bordering Poland and Czech Republic. So we usually will go to Poland and visit Czech Republic. I visit places like Prague, which is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Absolutely love it. And
Wow.
it's very Gothic. So it's very different, right? You go to Paris and it's very romantic and beautiful. And then you end up in Prague, which actually I prefer. Personally, I loved it because it was so different, right? Because it's a Gothic and it's dark, but it's beautiful still. I was lucky enough to go to Iceland last summer, so I got to see, like how they live and their construction, and it's very interesting, very minimalist from the outside of the building to the inside. It's just very minimal. It's super cold, and it gets dark, so you have all these amazing windows. Places just have big windows everywhere. So when there is light, there's a lot of light that can come in. So I have, I have a lot of love and experience looking at a lot of different design styles from Europe that I can bring home and work with.
So I want to do this. I'm going to press a button right here. I'm going to teleport you anywhere in the world. You're going to live there because you love the vibe, you love the culture, you love the style. You could do all of your work from there. There's no, collateral issues. You're going. So press the button. Where are you right now?
Oh, where would I be? In my heart, I'm probably in Venezuela, which is my home country. And I
Okay.
absolutely love it. It's got everything that anyone would ever dream of when it comes to living in a country. In my mind, to be smart, I'll probably would be, oh, that's such a hard decision. I love to be in Europe because it's so different. Where in Europe? Maybe Spain, near my brother, because that's where he
Okay.
lives. um, and then once you're in Europe, it's so easy to travel from one place to another. Uh,
Hmm.
I love the history of Europe. I love the Caribbean and the beaches and just because that's where
That
I grew up and it's like that's
that
home.
that's mine. It honestly is. And it's not just when people say, well, I love the palm trees and I love the weather and I love the beach. For me, it's half of it, aside from the culture, put that aside, half of it is the architecture and the colors and
Yeah,
just the certain feel to the way things look. I had a friend who had a house in Barbados, and he let me use his house probably 4 times. Just I just love that look, like the whitewash, the dark. Sometimes, actually, my bedroom has dark furniture, sort of like a darker Caribbean kind of feel to it. But I just love it. I don't know what it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
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 There is this town in the coastal Venezuela that has all kinds of different colors, like the exterior of the buildings, and it works. I don't know, like it has to be like the shades to pick, or like it's just perfect. Like you can do it anywhere else and it looks like a clown city. Like what were they thinking? But
Right.
you just travel through the canals and you see all the exteriors of the buildings with all the different colors and you're like, man, like this is beautiful. So colorful and perfect, right? And then you have European where it's dark and historic and rich. So yeah, I love
Mm.
everywhere.
Yeah, I see that.
I'm a true child of the world. I don't have frontiers.
Yeah, well, that's great too, because we could pick you up and drop you anywhere, and you probably would make it work because you've
Oh,
tried all different cultures and experience a lot. Um, what else is floating out there? The misconceptions that people have when it comes to hiring an interior designer.
a big one. We only like pretty stuff, right? We'll pick
Mm.
this weird couch because it's so pretty, but you're like, yeah, but it's so uncomfortable. So
Right.
we focus on aesthetics and not so much functionality and practicality. I think that's a big misconception. Um, the majority of us that have gone into design school, we know the importance of function and practicality is as important as aesthetics. So we want to make sure that your space looks beautiful and cohesive, yes. But you also have coats you do everyday life, right? You're going to have shoes, you're going to have coats, you're going to have, blankets, if you want to cuddle, watching a movie in a family room, like all these things are going to happen. People are going to spill drinks if you like gatherings. So picking furniture that won't stain as easily, that will have furniture that can maybe hide underneath like all your blankets and all your ugly stuff. So when people do come over, your house
Mm.
looks beautiful and not like it does, when it's just you and your three kids. So having that functional piece, do you have enough shelving space, right? That master bedroom that we were talking about a while ago, there was stuff everywhere. And by the time I was done, all the stuff was still there, but I had added enough functionality in the space that was pleasingly beautiful that you didn't have stuff anywhere anymore. Everything had a space, everything had, everything was where it needed to go. And it was easily accessible to the homeowner to where after I left, it didn't turn into the mess that it was before.
I think that's the key right there, that you listen to a client and you make it livable, where it's not just a piece of furniture, it has functionality to it. And right away, when you said about the spill, you took me back to a small gathering in the kitchen of the second to last house. And somebody was holding a glass of wine and just kind of just went, whoops. And it was red wine
Oh no.
in the grout. And no matter what I did, it never fully came out. Now, I didn't put that tile in. I didn't do the grout. That was already there when I got there. Um, Maybe if it was thought out better, it would have been a color that hid, a stain, because it was a very white grout in between. And it just, every time I walked in, I would always like, there it is again for years.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It should have like wine washed the rest of the grout and it
Yeah.
would have
Yeah. Like,
part of it.
good point. Make it all match. Yeah. And I'm sure there's lots of little tips and tricks and things like that that you've collected over time. I could keep going. I could go room by room by room. So much fun talking with you, Rebecca. How do we connect with you? How do we start the process? How do we break the misconception of an interior designer and live in a great space?
Well, you can contact me through my website, blueliliespace.com. So Blue Lily, the Lily spell Lillie space.com. Or my phone number, 808-333-7372. It's a Hawaii phone number. My husband was stationed in Hawaii before we met, and for whatever reason, when we got married and blend our
Wow.
phone lines, they were like, "Here you go, you have a Hawaii number," but I've never been.
It's cool. Also, I detect you have a Venezuelan accent and also a Southern accent put together in one.
Yes.
It's kind of cool. Never heard that before, but it's awesome. Great talking with you, and thanks for all the tips and all the insight. And looking forward next time we get together.
Yes. Thank you so much, Steve. Have a great day.
You too. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.